In a universe that is as grim as the Warhammer 40K universe, a universe that is filled with misery and destruction, where death looms around every corner, a glimmer of hope still exists. A person who cares about his units so dearly that he isn't going to allow a single one of them to die. And that person is me. Hi, I'm Amon, and welcome to the Warhammer 40K Dawn of War Dark Crusade Deathless video. God, what a title. Now, I said hope still exists if I make sure none of my units die, but I think that statement would have a bit more merit if I didn't play the race that is made of murder machines that want to destroy all life. The Necrons. But one problem at a time. Honestly though, how could I not pick them? I mean, cool machine ancient Egyptians from freaking outer space. Realistically, the choice was made for me. Also, I played on the hardest difficulty, as per usual on this channel. Is the game even considered completed if you don't play it on the hardest difficulty? Anyways, the goal of the game is to kick 6 enemy factions off the planet by taking out their strongholds, and we'll be using every dirty trick in the book to kick them off as soon as possible. Now let's do this. Most of the regular levels in this game are skirmishes with everybody having basically nothing in the beginning, and the goal is to destroy the enemy headquarters. The first level I chose to go to is no exception. I started with a commander and that's it. As you will see, most of my strategies within the game revolve around making a bunch of units early and crushing the opponent as soon as possible. I mean, why play for an hour when you can finish in 3 minutes? This statement applies to video games only, if you know what I mean. So I made a bunch of units and just tanked with my commander, while the guys from the back were just shooting their mechanical hearts out. The Deathless rule also applies to individual units in a squad. I am allowed to reinforce my squad with more members, but I am not allowed to lose a single squad member. Since I was playing against the annoying enemy race who loves sending invisible units, I needed to bring my Scarab builders because they're the only way of detection that doesn't cost supply. Freaking anime. But I will get my revenge, you can count on that. After dealing with everybody, I only needed to destroy the enemy headquarters. First level done. After beating this level, I got a commander upgrade point, which allows me to buy a commander upgrade. You gain one for reaching various milestones in the game. The upgrade I chose were Death Gloves, for increased damage and health. No need to deliberate further. Even though I said most levels in this game are just skirmishes, the next couple of levels are going to be special levels that give out special rewards for beating them. The first one of those is going to be the Starport level, that is going to let me attack any field except strongholds without being directly next to them. This is gonna help me beat the campaign a lot faster. This whole level is basically one big Where's Wally level where you just need to find 6 servitors before the enemy does. Since I remember the location of the 6 servitors necessary, I thought I was just going to speedrun through the entire level. And I did that for the first 5 of them, but the 6th one was a bit more difficult. It brushed with the enemy base and I literally ended up playing ping pong with the final servitor. And that ping pong took a good couple of minutes to beat. When I saved the last servitor, it was time to GTFO, but I was being chased by an enemy squad. But thankfully they said, "Nah," and went away. GG. The next level I jumped to was one that allows me to build forward bases, aka build buildings before the level starts, which is going to be huge when we start attacking enemy strongholds, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. This level is probably the most fun one in the entire game. You get a bunch of units in the start and you have to destroy all enemy buildings on the map. There is no building units here, what you have is what you get. And even though this is a hugely fun level in a regular playthrough, in Deathless, it's going to turn out to be one of the more painful ones. The level starts us with my commander and 2 hugely powerful but slow buildings that can teleport. And those are going to be my main forces for this level, because the others have a lot lower health. The enemy has 3 main bases and I use my buildings to teleport into the first base. And I get swarmed by enemies immediately. However, my buildings are insanely strong and they can deal with most of the units the enemy throws at me. That is until he arrives, the destroyer of universes, the Killa Kane. These guys deal insane melee damage, and they need to be dealt with as soon as they are seen, so they can't reach me, because if they hit me a couple of times, I'm not going to have a good time. And the enemy has 2 remaining bases, which are just constantly pumping out kilocans. That's why I decided to split my 2 buildings up and brought a couple of guys from the beginning of the level to help. They have to attack from range because they don't have too much health, but I was pretty desperate. Thankfully, the gamble paid off. It was a tough fight, but I managed to clear out all production buildings on the map. After many reloads, by the way. And in the end, I just had to deal with a couple of remaining buildings, and that's it. After beating the level, I got another commander upgrade, and this time I took the Cape of Death, because it is so cool that it increases my speed, and it's actually very resistant cloth, so it reduces the damage I get from ranged attacks. The next level is going to be the last special level we come across in this campaign. Other than the enemy's strongholds, of course. This one has the objective to kill a bunch of enemies. The enemy has 2 bases and they will start attacking really early, so I have to use my forward base power and build base defenses before the game starts. At the beginning of the game, I use my builders to make an obelisk tower to serve as an additional base defense. I could talk about what these obelisks are and what resources there are in the game and stuff like that, but none of it really matters. As I said in the intro, this is a game where you're supposed to train and lose a bunch of units, and I won't really need a lot of resources to train a couple of squads, reinforce them once, and never lose them after that. Alright, back to the level. Thankfully, I'm playing against the Imperial Guard on this level, and they just send a bunch of guardsmen who are literal cannon fodder, so I can be sure I can rack up a bunch of kills on them and easily get rid of them. That is until they show up. Kasrkins. These are irrationally strong guys who obliterate everything. In this case, they obliterated the left side of my base. So I move all my units to the right side and start building more base defenses. Thankfully, the kill counter managed to fill up before the Kasrkins managed to get to me, so I won. After beating this level, I will be allowed to move twice per turn on the campaign map, so I will be able to attack 2 fields without getting interrupted. Next up is a standard skirmish battle where I use my overpowered commander to take care of most of the enemy's starting forces. Then I build 2 squads of Necron warriors and we beat the remaining enemy defenders. Then I took care of the enemy headquarters and that's it. After beating the level, I got another upgrade for my commander, and I bought him a reinforced body to reduce melee damage and increase health. Both things I really like. Now it was time for the next turn. Unfortunately, I got attacked by the forces of chaos, so I had to defend myself. The rules for defenses are the same as for offenses, except that my infrastructure from the last level remains built. I was ready to repeat the same thing that I did last game, but the forces of chaos brought a lot more units. After battling a bunch of strong units, an unexpected guest arrived, a Defiler, a huge machine that the enemy brought with them. They didn't even build it. I microed my commander and an additional 2 squads of units perfectly, but I just couldn't beat that guy. And I really didn't feel like playing a standard macro game for this level. But then I remembered that the enemy often does random stuff during the attack phase. And I'll be damned, after loading and ending my turn again, the enemy didn't attack me. Mama didn't raise no quitter, but she sure raised an RNG abuser. And now I was free to attack my first stronghold and get rid of the Imperial Guard. Now you will see why I needed to build forward base defenses when attacking a stronghold. For some reason, this game insists on sending insanely strong waves of units at the very beginning of every stronghold level to try and finish me off early. The Imperial Guard is no exception. The defenses helped a lot, but they aren't enough on their own. My commander needed to do his part as well. When he was deadly damaged, I teleported him to the back of the base to regenerate. Oh, and yeah, he can teleport, which I will demonstrate a bunch on this level. The way I keep track if any of my units died is by keeping track of the supply in the top left corner, but also reinforcing my squad to full when they are built, so when I see a plus to further reinforce my squad, I know a squad member died. The enemy beat most of my defenses, but I managed to make a couple of units and barely take them out. Now I just build a bunch of defenses and that's it. The enemy will occasionally attack, but the defenses will handle anything they send from now on. After that, I've built a special tomb archive that can make my commander even more powerful. I bought him 3 upgrades: permanent stealth, phase shift to make him invulnerable but unable to attack for a while, and micro scarabs that reduce range damage to him and give him faster health regen. These upgrades only last for the duration of the level, so they won't last the whole campaign long, but I will buy them every time I play a longer mission. And now it was time to strike. The goal of the level is to destroy the enemy headquarters, but I had to get there first. So I used my Necron Lord to teleport and get there faster, and the game crashed. Okay, let's try this again. After doing some research, it would appear that the game version I had struggled with the resolution of in-game cutscenes like the one that was supposed to be played when I reached that platform, but it couldn't. So I had to switch to another version of the game. And guess what? I managed to transfer my saves without any issues. If that's not proof that God exists, then I don't know what is. Now it was time to destroy the headquarters. Now, my invisible guy just started pounding at the headquarters. And he just kept doing that, and the enemy just kept watching me, because they had no detection. They usually send detectors here, though I would assume the detector was somewhere behind that giant clump of units that were just watching me, so he couldn't come to the front and provide detection. My luck just keeps on piling on this level. I guess I used up all of it now, because the next stronghold is going to be the complete opposite. I broke stealth and beat the last part of the stronghold with the ultimate form of my Necron Lord. But there is going to be more time to talk about that one later. And that's it. The end of the Imperial Guard. At least one can say they went out with a bang. Hey, don't you know nobody wears 3D glasses anymore? Oh well, 1 down, 5 to go. The next level is a standard skirmish, which I'm forced to fight to get to the Chaos Stronghold. You know the drill. I went with the Necron Lord first to take care of the enemy units, and I came with 2 squads of infantry units to take the rest of the base out. And now it's time for the Chaos Stronghold. You know the drill. Build base defenses in advance and try to defend. The enemy doesn't throw as many units as the Imperial Guard did, but the defensive segment isn't the one that I was afraid of on this mission. The first thing on this mission that makes me afraid is the Bloodthirster, an extremely strong chaos unit that kills most units with ease. Thankfully, I managed to place defenses at the choke point there, so the side is defended well. The second thing that I'm afraid of are the cultists. The enemy upgraded them to become invisible, and for some reason there are 2 million of them on this level. They aren't strong, but it does take a while to take this many of them down. My plan for this level was to train vehicles that are pretty fast and deadly, and use them together with my Necron Lord to take the enemy portal out, which is the objective of this mission. After taking the Bloodthirster down, it was time to move out. Unfortunately, my vehicle guys, as fast as they are, have a problem. The problem isn't on their part though. The problem is with the game, and it's called pathing. I often make fun of StarCraft 1 and how its pathing totally sucks. But StarCraft 1 has got nothing on this game. It might look like a unit can squeeze through somewhere, but don't let looks fool you. If it looks like a unit can barely squeeze through, it's not even close to doing that. This especially goes for vehicles, and I've learned that the hard way. I had so many vehicles on this level, it was just a nightmare to move anywhere with them. I can't even begin to describe you how annoying this was. I spent 3 hours on this mission, and the only similar feeling of annoyance I have to compare it with was another 3-hour mission in another Deathless run. You probably know what I'm talking about. But somehow, someway, I do manage to reach the portal with my guys, accompanied by a builder squad, who served as my detection, since any other form of detection costs supply, and I had to keep them safe like water in a desert, because they can die extremely easily. Another Bloodthirster awaited me there. But thankfully, he isn't a detector, so I managed to take him out with my commander and the stealth aura he gives to nearby units. After taking him down, there were another million cultists waiting for me. But I took them down and I managed to bring my units under the portal, and I went to town on it. It has got several components, but we managed to take them all down. This 3-hour mission marks the end of any legitimate attempts I had at trying to beat this game. I could have used my commander to teleport to the portal and destroy it, but I wanted to play this one legit. I will have no more of that. It's going to be all cheesing from this moment on, and it's going to be glorious. 2 down, 4 to go. This mission gave me another commander upgrade because I killed 2,000 enemies. So I guess the game did register all those cultists the game threw at me. Although I'm pretty sure there were more than 2,000 killed on this mission. And since the invisible cultist traumatized me so much, I took the Death Mask upgrade that gives me a little more health and makes me see invisible units. So I won't need scarabs for detection anymore. Before heading to the next stronghold, I had to move to the tile next to it to actually be able to reach it. The stronghold I chose was the Space Marines one, but before that I had to deal with the remnants of the Imperial Guard. For this level I decided to go with Vanguard units. These are special units that can be bought from the menu, and they stick around permanently for each future level until killed. And since I'm playing Deathless, they are going to stick around permanently. I can buy them just as I can buy forward base buildings, by spending Requisition, which is a resource you get after each turn in the campaign map. For now, I have a Vanguard Zombie Squad and a Necron Warrior Squad. You know the drill by now. Necron Lord softens the enemy defenses up, and the rest of my units swoop in for the kill. Easy peasy. The next level, however, is going to be anything but. Now it was time to get rid of the Space Marines. I readied myself with forward base defenses, and it was time to launch my initial defense. And I got wrecked. These Space Marines hit like a freaking truck. They just tear through my defenses and I can't do much to stop them. So I decided to come back later when I'm a bit stronger. I might be too weak for Space Marines, but I'm definitely not too weak for kicking some orc butts. Interestingly enough, the enemy is actually more aggressive than me, and we meet their forces halfway between our bases. The enemy attacked me with a couple of guys and a commander, so I had to micro a bit until I managed to beat them. The problem with the orcs is that all their buildings shoot, so I have to be sure my commander is the one getting shot, because the rest of my troops can't handle that firepower. Unfortunately, he is at very low health after taking so much damage, and I still needed somebody to tank the attack from the HQ. So I built a spider tank, which has a bunch of health. And he managed to tank the building attacks while the rest of my guys took the HQ down. And that's it. I'm not going to attack the Orc stronghold just yet though. The Space Marine stronghold showed me that I need some extra firepower to deal with strongholds from now on. And for that, I went for the field that is going to let me build a Vanguard squad of 4 of the most powerful Necron units in the game. Pariahs. They might be only 4 units, but don't underestimate them. They can do a lot of damage. The level itself has 2 bases to deal with, and if I want to beat it as soon as possible, I will have to attack them both at the same time. For that, I needed some extra firepower, so I hired a couple of basic troop and zombie vanguards before the level started. If I place my zombies into my HQ, I can teleport them anywhere I have vision of. So I used my commander to teleport to the south enemy base, and my squad of zombies went right behind him. As always, he is the one doing the tanking, while the zombies attack the weak enemy units and their production structures. In the meantime, I sent my regular troops to the north, where they encountered another base. But that one was a bit weaker and didn't have as many troops in it. So, by microing my units well, I managed to deal with the defenders. After that, I managed to destroy the enemy production building and a couple of cannons. Then it was just a matter of destroying the enemy HQs. The guys on the north had more firepower, so they destroyed theirs first, but the south one wasn't far behind. On my next turn, the territory I previously took down was attacked by the orcs. I'm not going to load my last save and hope RNG prevents them from attacking though. One of my commander upgrade milestones is doing one successful defense, and I decided this is going to be the one. Even though I just gained my pariah squad, on defense missions you can only buy defenders that are basic squads that aren't as strong as vanguards. One of them was a spider tank, who is going to be great for tanking building shots. Also, I had a couple of buildings built from the last time I attacked this territory, so they're going to give me a little boost. The enemy has two bases here. First, I was attacked by the enemy commander, but I managed to persuade him to attack my commander, who did some good tanking, while my troops shot him down. Then I destroyed the enemy machine shop so they can't build kilakans, and I focused on the enemy's stronghold. I was quite slow though, so the enemy commander respawned. But I still focused the stronghold, and when it was down, my enemies disappeared into thin air. And then all hell broke loose. I bought the stealth field upgrade for my commander, and I took my spider tank with him to try and snipe the enemy HQ down. In the meantime, my basic soldiers were ambushed, but somehow, some way, they managed to defend themselves and survive. After that, I told them to hide in the corner so they wouldn't be ambushed anymore. In the meantime, the enemy commander gathered a huge force and started attacking my base. If I lose my HQ building, I will lose the mission. So I started building another HQ further down the road, while the rest of my base is being brought down. Now this level turned into a full-on base trade. Thankfully, this gave my kill team consisting of 2 people enough time to take down the enemy HQ. The upgrade I get from this one better be worth it though. The one I chose after doing this level was the Heart of Darkness, which boosts my health regen. Since my commander often tanks enemy shots, some health regen won't hurt to have. Unfortunately, the upgrade doesn't say how much health regen I actually get, but every little bit counts. And now it's time to take the fight to the Ork stronghold. My base defenses are ready for anything, and so are my vanguard units, now supported by my special Crypt Pariah squad. And just as the enemy starts attacking,
NANI?
a killakan. My pariahs managed to stand their ground at the choke point together with my commander, while the others shot as many enemies as they could. After some time defending, my pariahs got to low health and I told them to retreat, and now their watch has ended. Now only the killakan and an enemy commander remained, and I barely managed to take them down. Behind were a couple of trucks that proved to be an easy cleanup on aisle 5. And now it's time to take the fight to the enemy commander that needs to be killed. I managed to fully upgrade my commander, and he used his teleport to quickly reach the enemy boss. Together with him in the boss pit are a couple hundred elite infantry units, so to survive I only had one option: to use my commander's ultimate ability and become the Nightbringer. This lets my commander turn into the Grim Reaper himself. And while in that form, he does 1 billion damage and doesn't take any. I managed to take out a couple of enemies, but the form doesn't last indefinitely, so I turned it to my mortal form again. Despite that, I found a nice safe space in the corner where the enemies don't have any detection, so I decided to stay there and recuperate. Soon after, I was able to transform into the Nightbringer again. I dealt some damage to the boss, then teleported back to recharge. And I repeated this cycle a couple more times. All this time while I was attacking the boss, the enemy tanks in the area were shooting at me, and despite not dealing damage to me directly, they managed to damage the enemy boss instead. And since I got tired of waiting and wanted this to be over as quickly as possible, I used my phase shift artifact, which makes me invulnerable but unable to attack. Turns out I don't need to attack though. I just stand next to the boss and the tanks are doing the damage for me. After my phase shift expired, I turned into the Nightbringer and did some direct damage to the boss. And I repeated this a couple of times. Funnily enough, the final hit on the enemy boss was made by one of his own tanks. I bet he did that on purpose because he wanted to be the next boss. Officially, we're halfway there, but we're actually extremely close to the end. In fact, we have only 4 missions to go. By the way, I grabbed the Mantle of Doom upgrade after this level to increase my health and survivability a bit. And now it's time to take revenge on those pesky Space Marines. Now I have a bunch of troops to start with, and I'm not afraid to use them. Since the enemy sends out a lot of heavy hitters, I told my basic troops to stand behind and occasionally do damage if they can, but the majority of the fighting is going to be done by my commander and my pariahs. We managed to get rid of everybody but this pesky walker, who just has infinity health. But thankfully he didn't kill my base defenses, so they were very helpful in taking him down. After that, I teleported to the top of the cliff to take out the enemy tank that was bombarding me from range. He managed to hit my scarabs a couple of times, which killed them, and after a reload I swore I wasn't going to let this happen ever again. After that, I upgraded my commander again and I repeated the strategy from the last level. I teleported him towards the objective, which was a building this time, and not an overpowered boss who takes 3 years to kill. The enemy HQ was surrounded by 3 elite librarians who are the detectors for the Space Marines. The tooltip for all 3 of them says they are called epistolary amphias. Now, this is my question for the Warhammer lore people here. Since they are all called the same and it says they are one of the more feared librarians, does that mean the developers just threw in 3 of the same people into the game? Or do Space Marines clone their librarians? Or is there another explanation for the existence of 3 of the same people here? The comment section is eagerly awaiting you. In the meantime, I killed the top librarian and hid in the corner. When my ultimate was ready again, I took out the rest of the librarians and I had free reign to attack the enemy HQ without any problems. After a couple of cycles of switching between my ultimate form and my stealth attacks, I managed to take it down. Now we can just watch the enemy commander chill on the floor while he watches the rest of his troops be obliterated. 2 more factions to go. The next race we're going to take out is going to be the anime race. The Japanese cartoon guys need to be exterminated. And something tells me they heard me call them names because the initial forces these guys sent hit like a freaking truck. And I'm not even joking. Literally any anime rifle or vehicle is 100% deadly. I can't even afford to wait for the enemy to start attacking me because they will group all their units into a death clump. So I decided to take the fight to one of the initial groups waiting to attack me. I went to clear out the units on the right side of my sector since they are the weakest ones. They have a couple of vehicles and units, but if I persuade them to attack my commander, I can use the rest of my vanguard units to take them out. Unfortunately, this fight took so much time that the enemy started attacking me from the other side. And these guys pull no punches. They are so strong that they would instantly melt anything except my commander, so I used him to thin the herd as much as I can. In the meantime, I built a couple more base defenses on the right side, since every little bit helps, because unfortunately most of my buildings have been destroyed. The most dangerous unit attacking me here is the Krutox, who is basically the Kill-A-Can of the Tau Empire, but a lot stronger. My additional defenses, together with my pariahs, managed to take him out, while my commander was on the other side distracting the group of enemy heavy hitters. After a while, the heavy hitters became too much for my commander and he had to retreat. And this is where the really crazy part of the level comes into play. And yeah, it gets even crazier than it already is. The enemy managed to kill all my buildings, but I still had some residual power left, so I was able to build another HQ building in the alley next to my base. The initial enemy attack wave is tasked to destroy the initial base, but they aren't scripted to attack the alleys next to it. I guess the developers didn't think anybody would be crazy enough to build a base there, but here we are. The heavy hitters are still in my old main base, and my guys are in the alley building another base. When my commander got his health back, I took out the initial enemy attack wave. Then, to be extra safe, I built defenses on both sides of my base. And now it has become a base sandwich. And I was literally living on the street. Take her to the streets is taking a whole different meaning right now. Soon after, my commander was fully upgraded and I was ready to move towards the enemy main base, while a couple of pariah squads defend from any new attackers. The goal of the level is to kill the enemy High Lord commander. I first went north to find a nice place to hold up while trying to find the enemy commander. But first I had to kill a couple of defenders that were stationed there. Turns out the enemy commander tries to find a safe place, and when he is attacked there, he starts patrolling to find another safe place. Despite having an attack, he never uses it. An anime-loving nerd who doesn't want to fight? There are too many of those in the real world as is. Let's not have them in the virtual world as well. Since the north of the base is cleared of units, my best bet is to take him out there. Unfortunately, he is so slippery that I can get just a couple of hits in before he retreats south to the dangerous part of the base. I tried using my teleporting zombies to try and bully him into the corner like any anime nerd should be, but he just doesn't want to stay there. And if I try to surround him with zombies, they will use their attack and push him out of the zombie circle. But what if I didn't use my attacks? You see, the game allows me to use several stances that indicate different levels of aggressiveness. One of them is the stop stance, where my units can't do anything. So I surrounded him with zombies and used my stop stance. And I'll be damned, it actually worked. Unfortunately, the only way of actually damaging the guy is with a ranged attack, and the only one who has one is my commander, and his ranged attack sucks. So it took a literal eternity to actually deal any real damage to him.
One eternity later.
But with enough patience, and despite it feeling like watching paint dry, I took him down. Looks like the power of God and anime weren't on his side after all. There is only one more race left, the Eldar, ancient enemies of the Necrons. It's only fitting that they are the last one remaining. Just 2 more missions left. The Eldar are a very interesting race that relies on trickery and stealth rather than brute force. In this level, they have 2 bases, but the first one was a real pushover. I took out a couple of enemy base defenses with my initial forces, and then I took down the enemy HQ afterwards. I guess the enemy didn't have time to build up any units yet. Unfortunately, the other base did. The base is on a hill, and going through the intended path is just not an option, since it's guarded by a bunch of defenses. So I told my regular units to stay near the cliff, while my commander attacks the enemy HQ with a couple of zombie helpers. And then she arrives. You might not think a dancer could be the most dangerous unit the Eldar have to offer, but you would be wrong. The dancer can single-handedly stunlock all my units into oblivion. That's why I have a bunch of my guys standing near the cliff. I baited her to follow me to the cliff, and then my guys took her out with their ranged attacks. In the meantime, an enemy attack wave started attacking my base, so we have another base trade scenario in our hands. But with a lot of luck and reloads, I managed to take out the enemy HQ with 0 zombies lost in the process. Just because they're zombies doesn't mean they want to die again. And before the last level, I have gotten myself a staff upgrade that lets me deal more melee damage. And now it's time for the grand finale. Last mission awarded me with a Vanguard Spider Tank, and it is going to come very handy for this mission. The enemy starts very quickly with their attack, and they brought a couple of squads on a shuttle to the north of my base, so I had to take them out first. And while I was taking them out, a giant wave of enemies teleported towards me. The first wave was only a bait. This is how the Eldar love to operate. I barely managed to take them out when another wave of enemies arrived. Interestingly enough, those enemies weren't Eldar. Turns out there is a giant orc base on the map, and they send attacks against me as well, despite being hostile to Eldar. They both became too much for me at one point, so I baited them to attack each other, which turned out to be a great decision. The Eldar won the fight, but my commander cleared up the rest of them. Then I rebuilt my infrastructure, and it was time for offensive measures. There are a couple of very powerful rhinos in the north who are going to attack the orc base when I free them. I thought they were going to obliterate the orc base after that, but even with the help of my commander, they got themselves killed. They were allies who aren't even Necrons, by the way, so that doesn't really count as a death. In any case, this base doesn't just die when you destroy the enemy HQ. So I think the best course of action here is to just ignore it. It will take too long to take it down. So just imagine that I didn't free the rhinos and that I went straight to the middle of the map instead. which is defended by so many invisible cannons, it is just insane. Even though in the initial cutscene, the Eldar leader says this.
Eldar rely on speed and stealth. We are not made for entrenched positions.
And then they proceeded to build by far the most base defenses out of all factions I have faced so far. Thankfully, my couple of pariah squads, together with my commander, managed to take out the defenses in the middle. And just as I went up the ramp, another enemy race appeared. Chaos. Turns out there are 4 factions on this map. However, Chaos has traumatized me too much already, so I will ignore them as well. The goal of the mission is to capture and hold 3 critical points on the map. But first I have to clear the area around them. There are a bunch of cannons there, so I have to take out the Nightbringer to deal with them. In order to defend the critical points, I need more firepower, so I captured a relic in the middle of the map, which gives me access to the most powerful Necron unit, the Awakened Monolith, aka one of the buildings from level 3. But first I had to make an HQ to transform it into one. It is so slow that it will take an eternity for it to arrive from my main base, so this is the faster solution. As you might know, I hate defense segments in Deathless challenges. I try to avoid them as much as possible. It's just too difficult to face overwhelming numbers when none of your units can die. Thankfully, this mission offers an alternative win condition, that is to take out the Eldar main base. The monolith is so strong that I legitimately thought it would be a breeze to take their main base out with the help of my Nightbringer. I could not have been more wrong. There are a billion units in their main base, and those units are so strong they can melt my monolith. So, as much as it pains me, I will have to finish this mission legitimately, the way it was intended. I told my monolith to go west and take out the enemy cannons standing in my way, while the rest of my guys are in the north, taking out the remaining enemy buildings. Then I returned the monolith to the middle to defend that choke point where all factions are fighting each other. Since it's insanely strong and has a very solid health regen, it can handle the occasional skirmish in the middle of the map. In the meantime, my guys cleared the left side of the map, and now the critical points are free to be captured. But first I had to prepare my defenses. You already know the middle is going to be defended by the monolith. My commander is going to defend the north, while my pariahs, covered by a couple of defenses, defend the west. There are a bunch of guys gathering in the north, but the goal is to hold the critical point, so if I snipe or distract the squads capable of capturing the point, this side is safe. If I focus down the enemies who do extra damage to buildings, the middle can be easily defended. I just have to quickly take out any squad that tries to sneakily capture the critical point. And then the enemy just randomly decided to send out the avatar of Burning Vengeance after my monolith. My monolith can handle a lot, but this guy is just way too hot to handle. Now, on my last attempt, the guy didn't show up for some reason. Maybe good RNG, or maybe I did something to provoke him before that. I don't know, but I'm not going to complain about it. The guys on the left side get attacked only once, and that is towards the end of the timer with a giant wave of enemies. But with a bunch of defenses, it was defendable. However, for some reason, on my last attempt, they didn't show up either. So the last couple of minutes on my last attempt ended up being my monolith defending from a regular number of enemies, the west defenders waiting for enemies that are never going to come, and my commander in the north sniping and distracting people who can capture points. What a weird way to end the level. But hey, I played this mission for hours already, so I desperately needed and deserved a break. And that's it. A couple of lucky breaks later, the Eldar got eliminated. Now, finally the planet belongs to the dead. But only figuratively dead. Everybody managed to survive. I managed to keep every single soldier alive, which is a huge achievement in the Warhammer 40K universe, which is a literal meat grinder for units. Anyways, I would like to thank everybody who stuck with me on this amazing journey. Well, amazing most of the time, and then there was the Chaos Stronghold. For my next challenge series, I have something very special planned. It's going to involve StarCraft 2 and an extremely difficult challenge that I have never seen being attempted in any RTS ever. So that should be enough of a teaser for you to stick around. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, whatever you youngsters do these days, and I'll see you in the next challenge. Peace!